billion, close to $1 billion. Theirs happens to not mostly be local, but I would say 200 to 300 million of it's probably local. I know Frank funds probably 100 million. Aztec's probably running 200 million. Argus probably runs 200 million. And you just look at the transactional volume, and that's 5 I've named. And there's probably 50 that are as active as the smallest one I mentioned.
And these are specifically, just as a qualification, these are specifically on flip type transactions?
This is just lenders who do almost nothing but fix and flip.
Okay.
That's
because
I know 6 month loans.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no. It is just so if you look at that, if you just take the top 5, right?
Right.
Just figure there's an aggregate of, let's say, $3 billion that they're doing. And I think it's more. But if they're doing $3 billion, right, that's giving you $250 million a month in transactional volume of investors here locally.
Okay.
So the average price point, they're probably buying is, let's call it 400,000. Probably less, but let's call it 400,000. So if it's 400,000, that means that there's 625 potential flips every month here locally.
That's a lot of transaction. And right. that would apply nationally because the figure has to hold up. I mean, if you look at the figure of 60% of all property, it's plus or minus 60% being non-owner occupied at this point. I mean, it's a lot of institutional investment.
Yeah, it's much lower here. But yeah, it's nationally, it's a big number. So I think that there are opportunities. There are opportunities today that exist that did not exist before. And that's probably why if people haven't kind of reinvented themselves, they're probably having some challenges. But to go back to your initial question about the networking, here's what most agents I see do is they go to networking events, and there's 2 types. There's the type that don't actually network. They stay with their own group. And I don't call that networking. That's just not working, right? Because you're just hanging out. You might as well just hang out at a bar or at a restaurant or whatever. They're just there socially to get together with friends, and that's it. There's the others that are the kind of the hoarders, I call them, which they're just out to get as many business cards as they can. And so that they feel like that was a productive day. And for some of them, they're going to take them, input them into their CRM, and they're going to build their CRM that way, and that'll translate to business over time. Okay, it's a little way. There's no real personal aspect to it, and it's not the way to get the most out of the network. What I have found works best, and it's usually when I go to networking events, I don't leave with like necessarily just new contacts. I usually leave with between 1 and 5 properties to go see within the next day or 2 that are real deals that you can buy. And the reality that you have to do is get away from I'm going to say the selfishness or the self-interest better, because most people, they go there and they are approaching everyone with, what can I get out of them? Instead of what can I do for them and how can we make this a mutually beneficial relationship? So imagine if they were like, if this was just a singles bar and, and everyone's just walking up to everyone and saying, hey, do you want to fuck? I mean, that might work like 1% of the time, but the rest of the time you're going to get like slapped. In a networking thing, if you walk up and it's like, hey, you're an investor, can I have your listings? It just doesn't work. I mean, in the reality, that's not how the business works. You have to sit there and take it and absorb what they're doing and try to figure out how do you fit in, how can you fit in, and if you can fit in, then like explore that realm and see if that person has an interest in doing something. If they do, then you've built a new relationship and spend some time. I would rather go to a networking event and meet one person that is going to be a quality relationship than meet 50 people or 100 people that night.
I want to I agree with you. And for those of you on the call, from a marketing standpoint, we work a very specific niche, and I completely agree with your logic. And I'm just wondering, because I know David's on the call, David, How is your referral base on getting defaulted properties?
That was mine.
How is yours? Yes.
Well, mine's pretty good. I'd say well over 50% come from referral.
And that's just because everybody knows you work a specific niche.
For sure. I mean, people call us. I hear all the time that I'm calling you because I hear you're the guy that can help me.
And the reason I'm throwing this out to everybody, you know this, David, because you coach a segment of the group, and how many times have we heard, oh, I don't want the competition. I don't want everybody knowing where I'm getting my listings from. I think everybody in your office should know. If you got 400 people there, all 400 of them should know what you're working on, because I can tell you this, and Robert, maybe you can back me up. Nobody is big on defaulted properties these days.
Yeah, that's most of them have moved on a little bit, and there's probably still a strong niche there. But I will say that the thing about sharing that you mentioned, just to go back to that for a second, is you look at it like there's this fear of like missing out. And most people think that, well, if I just keep this to myself, I won't miss out. And the reality is that if you don't incorporate a team is when you miss out.
Yeah.
And so if you're going to share it, there's nothing wrong with sharing what you're doing and profiting from it at the same time. Share what you're doing. And here's the other thing. You could sit there and write a step-by-step process as to exactly what you're doing. And in an office of 100 active agents, I'm going to say maybe 3 will do it. And the rest will try it one time and say it doesn't work. That's it. So you don't really create a lot of competition, but what you do is you garner this goodwill that when someone has a question, that they'd come to you because you're the expert. And they're watching you do it, but they're just not. Look, most real estate agents, listen, the reality is they fail because they're unwilling to work. That's it. They're unwilling to sit there and put the hours in and do the stuff that they don't like to do, or they don't want to hire to their weakness because they're afraid that they're going to, not know how to train them, which is a very valid concern, is that they hire to their weakness, and then they, rather than shore up their weakness, they create additional weakness because they didn't train the person correctly, because then they themselves did not know how to overcome whatever obstacle is their weakness, if that makes sense. So I'm a big fan of sharing. I think that here's what I think. I mentioned this once, I think in Vegas, was I think if you're a real estate agent and you go on a listing appointment and you don't immediately get the listing, you should share that listing with the next top 3 people in your office and tell them, go door knock this. I haven't converted it. If you can convert it, let's split the commission. Because more often than not, you're going to make some money from that listing now. And if you could let your ego go, you'll sit there and at least make some money. Whereas if you didn't walk away with it, there's a pretty decent chance that they're going to probably talk to someone else who may or may not be a better closer than you. And then your percentages go down from earning from that particular contact. I look at it, here's what I look at real estate as really, we're all in the lead generation business, and we're trying to create leads, and we want to profit from those leads. At the moment where you think, well, I might not profit from this lead, but I know this is a pretty viable lead because, the seller said, I'm going to sell, then how else can I profit from that lead? And who can I give it to? And the more people that you give it to, the better odds you have of someone profiting from that and you participate in it.
That's a really good topic. You and I share it. David does this too. And I don't even know where the 3 of us have adopted. And it's a very rare trait, which is any lead is a good lead and there's profit to be made on any lead. So many times I've heard, well, this isn't this kind of deal. This isn't what I work on. This isn't really my funnel. I can even go back to when I was working at a bank and doing trade shows and not getting construction loans, and people saying, the person at the booth, this was a manager of IndyMac, going, I don't see the value in dragging down that lead. That's because there's somebody else in the building who can convert that lead. There's always value in when it comes to real estate, there is always some funnel for some lead somehow. And I don't care if it's lending, investing, or real estate. And the only way to get to it is by creating this relationship. I know that's the way it is in David's world. And I know the way how that is in your world. I'm just fascinated how mono-minded people become in real estate.
You're breaking up a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry.
Now I will say this: there is a point. By the way, you're breaking up a little bit, but there is a point when your time becomes more valuable than what you could earn on that lead. And when that happens, or when you foresee that happening, it's not a time, and this is what happened, right? It's not a time to pass on those leads. It's a time to hire and train to not miss out on those leads. Because that's when if you're getting that many leads that you're saying, you know what? Yeah, that lead, it's going to take too much time. It's going to take 3 months to grab that, to convert that lead. I can tell you that almost every agent in 2008 and 2009 wished they had not converted or had passed on those leads. Just like the investors wish we didn't pass on any deal we could have bought back then. Because what it's worth today is significantly more. And for the agents that went through the downturn and then struggled, it's dumb. I remember looking at deals back then, and and here's the problem, right? Is you have a certain capability, and you can only do what you can do for your capability. And I think that is the mindset that a lot of agents get involved with. The sharper agents, or I'll say the more established long-term and that have been profitable long-term, they don't miss a beat. And it's not that they don't want to go after the leasing business, but if there's somebody who wants to lease a house and they're going to make X amount of dollars, they take that because they know that that may come with a referral. It may come with whatever that person may eventually buy. It also is just income, and they try to fill up their calendar with essentially earning activity. And the more you're earning, at the end of the year, it just all adds up. It's crazy how it all adds up.
I agree. And diversification is the key. All right, which takes us to the point where we are. You've created now a pool of realtors and a pool of investors. Once again, just like you did it, now you're doing it on the private sector, and you're going around and you basically, not only do you market, you also solicit agents to bring you deals. What is your function these days? I know you're far more hands-on since I have transactions with you. How does it all play out these days?
Yeah, so here, and this is one of the reasons I'm super hands-on right now. Is a lot of people don't know this. So I used to have a construction company. I let my license expire in 2001. We had another construction company, but I wasn't the RMO for it. And we decided to kind of test the market. The market right now it's so hot that most investors aren't fully rehabbing the houses. They're just kind of painting patches. There's some investors that are institutional guys that they kind of just do the same thing. But you look at like the home investor model right now, and they're probably super busy flipping houses. But the model is clean it out, sell it as is. Somebody's going to pay more because the market's hot. Or paint it, get rid of the smell, change the carpet. That's about it, as much as they're going to do. It's basically they're creating REOs rather than like kind of sustainable housing. So, we had a discussion once, and we decided, all right, let's go through and buy these houses with whatever budget we've got to make the deals work. And some of the deals are tighter than others. And I think that we can probably have gone down the road where we would have just painted, and some of them you have to do certain things, right? Others you don't have to do everything to it. But even those, what we decided to do is do a little experiment here with some of the ones that I've got personally. And the experiment is, if we create better housing that's centric around, let's say, family and social interactions, will the buyers pay more? Will they gravitate towards it? And will we create a niche? So that's kind of what we're doing with a lot of the houses right now. But in order to be able to do that, if I was subbing everything out like we normally would to like the contractors and what have you that we were doing, our cost would probably be, I'm going to say, easily 50% more, if not higher. And so what we've done is I hired a couple of, like a smart home guy to create a plan to just, this is what you should do to the house. And these